Let's talk about the top signs that you're about to get laid off. Hi, I'm Kendall. I'm a director of marketing, and I was laid off in December of 2022. There was a lot of evidence before my layoff that it was going to happen, and so it was not surprising. I hope to share this so that if you're worried about getting laid off, you can understand if you're experiencing similar signs. First sign is if your company is continuously missing revenue goals. Definitely pay attention to QBRs, but beyond that, if you're in a revenue driving function, you'll probably have a pretty good sense of the business that you're currently driving. Second is if you have a culture around layoffs. When I joined my previous company, I knew that they had a round of layoffs right when I first started, and there was no discussion about it. There was no after effects. It just kind of happened, which was a red flag because clearly this is something that happened pretty often, and it was just part of the culture. Thirdly, if your boss starts getting all of a sudden really involved in your work at a unreasonable level or level of detail that they never had, this is because they know you're about to get laid off and they want to soak up as much information as possible and know what projects are currently in flight that they'll have to take over. Next is budget cuts. If you are starting to see budgets cut across the department and you're seeing that quarter over quarter, that's a pretty good indication that there's something wrong happening. And then lastly, and the clearest sign that you're about to get laid off is if you get a 15-minute unexpected one-on-one put on your calendar less than 24 hours before the meeting. And usually that comes from your boss or that might come from HR.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Gag with Geach. I am your boy Geach, and y'all listen, we've all seen it all on the news, all these layoffs happening all over the world. So we're going to jump into these clips, see how people giving some tips on, like this last lady gave some tips on how you know if a layoff is coming your way. I know budget cuts has been a big one. I've seen that even where I work at. We've lost a lot of people. Thankfully, I wasn't impacted by the layoff, but you know what, my heart goes out to those people that were, especially a lot of them who had families and kids and mortgages and all that stuff. A whole bunch of people was affected. But let's get into these clips and see how everybody else is feeling.
Signs that a layoff is in your future. First one, budget cuts or reduced spending. Bonuses aren't coming through the way that they used to. You're not traveling, or those company-sponsored lunches are few and far between. It is a sign that things are getting ready to change.
Those budget cuts, like I just said, those budget cuts, clear indicator that it's about to be some layoffs going on, because you have to realize when it comes to work, you are actually a liability to these companies. Remember, anything that takes money from, aka your salary, is a liability. So you are going to be one of the first ones going when it's time for these companies to do these budget cuts. So that is definitely a clear indicator that it's going to be some layoffs around or coming up down the pipeline. So, you know, more than one people mentioning that, you might want to take heed of that.
Number two, questioning your role and comparing to others. If you ever have a question about, so what's the difference between what you do and what Jim does? Or explain to me the difference between how project management helps this versus a scrum master. The company is trying to determine if there's a duplication in roles and which role will best suit the future needs of the company. Number three, changes in your responsibility. Now, unless you mentioned in your last performance review that you want more responsibility or you're looking at pivoting into a different position, your role should not change substantially from your job description. So if you see a significant increase in your responsibilities or decrease, they're finding different ways to automate it or have someone else come in and fill it, chances are your position is about to be eliminated. Fourth thing that a layoff is looming within your company is a hiring freeze or not backfilling vacancies. You don't need to add more people to staff if your whole purpose is to reduce staff. Share this video with someone who has fears of a layoff and save it so you're not caught off guard in the future.
Here's some signs that your company is about to do some layoffs. So the first sign is when those in higher up positions start leaving the company. And it's never going to be all at once. It may be like one senior salesperson leaves like this month, 2 months later, another person leaves. And you're like, where are all these folks leaving? Like, aren't they good? Aren't they stable? So that kind of raises eyebrows, and then you go back to your job.
She is definitely telling the truth about that. Seeing that in my company, even now, still some of the, quote unquote, the big wigs, they're leaving because they're going to find employment elsewhere where they feel they'll be more secure at. So yeah, she definitely telling the truth about that. When you see all the higher ups starting to leave and get the hell on out of Dodge, it's clear sign, clear indicator.
Another reason is when they start budget cuts. I remember when my company was like, oh, we're going to slow down the travel, only essential travel. I was like, are y'all poor? Like, why are y'all cutting out the budget for travel? Aren't we supposed to be seeing clients? That was another red flag. I was like, oh, they ain't got no money. Another red flag is when you see like your managers and stuff all of a sudden be in a lot of leadership meetings. And it's like, why y'all having all these meetings? There is nothing to discuss. What they're discussing is how they can get rid of folks and save some of that budget. So that is another one. Another red flag that I noticed over the years is, the obvious one when they start micromanaging. This didn't happen to me, but when they start being like, what are your KPIs? What are your goals? Are you updating Salesforce? I'm like, chill. Why are y'all doing so much? Like, we know what we're doing. Like, that is a key sign that, something's going on. There's any type of hiring freeze. Like at the moment when they're like, let's hold on hiring, or they're doing a bunch of offshore hiring, they ain't got no money. They about to lay off folks that got high salaries so they can unfortunately pay people overseas a little less to do the same job. It's when they start having a lot of board meetings and they're just like talking about, oh, we got to be ambitious with our goals. I'm like, y'all sound crazy. Like, ew. It's because they're about to lay some people off. Let me know what are some other things that y'all notice that layoffs are coming.
Before you're laid off, fired, your contract isn't renewed, or you're passed up on a promotion, there are some clear indicators that a lot of people just don't pay attention to. I had a contract that I worked for 1 year, and I kept asking this client if they wanted to renew my contract for another 6 months or 12 months. They came back and said they weren't sure, and then finally they renewed it for 2 months. Most people might think, what's the issue if your contract was renewed for 2 more months? It means you still have a job. But what that signals to me is there's probably a cash flow problem. Company never wants to be left without employees doing the work that needs to be done for the company to be successful. So if you're telling a contractor that does a lot of work on whatever projects on a day-to-day basis that they're only going to be renewed for 2 more months, you are signaling to them that you likely won't need them or won't be able to afford them thereafter. Whether a client needs me, wants me, doesn't really matter. I select my contracts based on stability. To me, 2 months isn't really stable, but it is a great amount of time for me to find another long-term contract to provide myself with the stability that I require. I pay attention to how much runway a company has, and they'll normally tell you if you ask, or if it's a publicly traded company, you can find all of this on their investors relations page. If the company doesn't have enough cash, whether you're a contractor or a full-time employee, if they don't have enough cash and you are not an integral part of keeping the company's doors open, they'll probably lay you off, terminate your contract, let you go, whatever they need to do. Another example of this, before I became an independent consultant, I took on a contract just to test the waters a little bit. And when I first joined, I was like, I'm not really doing that much work, but they're paying me all this money and they have all these contractors and all these full-time employees. It doesn't really make sense. I don't really feel like this is a stable opportunity. They ended up terminating my contract early. I was only a contractor for 3 months. Why? Because they overexceeded their budget. So that's another thing I paid attention to. Does the work make sense for what's being spent? And are there too many chefs in the kitchen? If there are too many chefs in the kitchen, you're probably going to get laid off. Now, if you're full-time, the other thing you could pay attention to outside of money is your performance. If you get put on a PIP, they're probably trying to get you out of there. If you're excluded from meetings that you used to be a part of, or your manager is kind of just icing you out, they're probably going to lay you off and let you go. If you're not being given opportunities to advance, but somebody else is, you're probably not going to get that promotion. There's all these subtle things that happen in corporate America that are very easy to assess your role within an organization if you just pay attention. The moment.
And she's absolutely right about that, because I was recently, all of us at my job, we were recently told that there's going to be a change in performance appraisals and how all of that's going. Basically, y'all ain't about to be getting no high ratings like that because you ain't going to get no bonus because the budget's being cut, so don't look forward to it. That's what I took away from, the meeting. So that's also another indicator. But that goes back to budget cuts like we were talking about earlier. When these jobs start doing all these budget cuts, or you know, well, thankfully for us, they already done laid off a whole bunch of people. So those of us that are still here, hopefully we be safe for a little while. You just never know, but that's definitely one of the things. They basically told us, don't be looking for no bonuses. We ain't got no money for that.
Client renewed my contract for 2 months. I literally started interviewing a week later, and I officially accepted another contract, and I'm happy for this new beginning. And
someone who was laid off 3 weeks ago and just now picked up on some signs that I didn't really pick up on at the time. For one, and specifically for people who work remotely, they're going to start asking you about your work computer. My situation, I use my personal laptop. I actually didn't get a work computer until like 4 months into me having the job. So I was just used to using my personal laptop, had a VPN. This was approved. They knew about this. But a month before I was laid off, they were asking why I hadn't logged into my computer, since 2022. Direct managers, leadership teams, they're going to start leaving the company really quietly and very quickly. And that definitely happened. My personal boss left about 8 months before. And well, actually, he didn't leave. He was fired. There was tons of leadership that were being very, very quiet about their offboarding process. And I found out through like LinkedIn stuff. And they were very quiet about it when I reached out. Deadlines are going to be pushed even further than they normally already have, or if they have never been really pushy about certain deadlines, they're definitely going to want things done very quickly, and they're going to make that very apparent. Your project-based work, you're not going to get really any more projects. And most of the time, the person you directly report to is going to basically go ghost on you. The dreaded meeting request, mine was called Catch Up, and it was for a Monday morning. They usually will do this to be courteous the day of, so you're not word sick the entire weekend. However, my company did not do that. They put it on our calendar the day before we were off for the 4th of July weekend, and I was worried about it all weekend, rightfully so, because it was actually me getting laid off. And also immediately, if you get on these meetings and you see anyone from HR, it's a dead giveaway. If this has happened to you, I am so sorry. It is one of the most disheartening things that can happen to somebody, and just know that these companies only care about their bottom line, and they're going to do what they have to do in order to make money for whoever is vested in this company. Try your best to always have a backup plan, keep your resume updated, and keep all of your options open, because unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, these companies don't care about you personally. They don't care about what's going on with your life at all. They are just worried about making money. So don't let your job stress you out that much. Like, obviously do your job, do what you're paid to do as best as you can. Keep your integrity throughout the entire thing, but don't lose your head over some of these companies, please, because they don't care. They just don't. Simply put.
Do you ever get a weird vibe at work, like something is just off? Well, sometimes that could be a sign that a layoff is coming. And there are some signs. Layoffs just don't happen out of the blue. There are signs that you can be on the lookout for to make sure that you're staying ready so that you don't have to get ready. All right, sign number 1. This is not the end all be all, but come closer. Your company gets acquired by private equity. Somebody's getting laid off. Many people are getting laid off. Okay, private equity does not mess around. They will chop entire departments, okay? That's a good sign. Sign number 2. Massive leadership changes. Like, I don't know, the CEO decides that unexpectedly they're stepping down, or some SVP leaves. A layoff is coming, or change in leadership that will change team dynamics is for sure coming. Be aware, stay ready.
All right, y'all, I appreciate y'all tuning into another episode of Gag with Geach. Drop down in the comments, leave me some gags. What are some signs that you notice at your job that a layoff is coming, or some things that maybe some friends or family happened to them that was a clear indicator that layoffs was coming? Whatever you've experienced, drop down, let us know, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Geach out.